Everyone, welcome to iRingkas. This is our first video, and today we're going to talk about chapter 1 of Form 4, which is functions. So, just a disclaimer, we're going to use the KSSM syllabus, the new one, because it has more information than the KBSM syllabus. I'll talk about this more in detail in a separate video, okay? When I talk about my website and the YouTube channel as well. So, we're going to do three things today. We're going to talk about what functions are, and then what the absolute value function is, and relations and functions. Okay, now let's define functions. So functions, what is a function? A function is a process. Okay, it's a process applied to inputs to give outputs. Okay, so you have an input, you put it into a machine or a process or whatever you want to think of, that would then convert it into an output. Okay, this input is sometimes is also called the object. I think this is a better name. Okay, and we are going to stick to this name more often, not abject, object. Okay, cool. So it's an object, and the output is either called the image, okay, or we also call it the value of the function. Okay, the value of the function at some input. So if the input is, say, a number x, then we call the output the value of the function at x. Okay, so now I think so in the notes that I'll have on my website soon, I spoke about a juice maker. Okay, so you have this machine, and then it takes in one fruit, right? One fruit, and then it gives you exactly 1 cup of juice, right? So if you put in orange juice here, if you put orange into the input, then you'll get orange juice. Oops. Okay, you get orange juice, right? And this process here is called oops yeah, so this process here, we can call it juice making, maybe. Okay, so it just makes a fruit into a juice. Cool. So you can do this. If you change the input, then the output might change, right? So the idea is that the juice that you get here, the output, okay, this is the output, this is the input, so the output will depend on the input. Okay, what kind of juice you get depends on what kind of fruit you put into the machine. All right, then we can do this with numbers also. So what we are interested in our syllabus is that we are going to put a number. Okay, so this x is a number, one number, and then we put it into this function f. This is a function, so this is our input or object. Okay, and then we are going to get an image here, or output, but I'm leaving this place blank because I'm going to talk about the notation. So how do we write the output? That's important. So now we are taking this input x and we are applying f to it. Okay, so we have an input and then we apply the function. So this is how we write our output. Okay, we write the name of the function. In this case, the name is f. Okay, so we have f of x. Okay, so this is the output. Cool. And this notation is important because this is how we are going to write our functions. So let me give an example. We have a function f. What this function does is it will multiply numbers by 2. Okay, so you put in number x as the object, and then you put it into this function f. It will give you 2 times x, or 2x, which is the image. So we write this function as fx equals to 2x. And so now let's do one or two examples of putting in values. So say we say x is 1. So we are putting the number 1 into this function. What is going to be at the output? The output is f of 1, right? We are just going to substitute x equals to 1. And then what we get is 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, so if you put in number 1, you will get number 2 as an output. Similarly, if you put negative 3, what you will get is f of negative 3, which is 2 times negative 3, negative 6. Okay, so 1 goes to 2 under the function f, and negative 3 goes to 6 under the function f. And what is f doing? F is multiplying the numbers by 2. Alright, so now let's take a different function. This function does something special, which the output is the positive value of the number x. Okay, so if I put negative 1 as the input, I'll get 1. If I put negative 3, I'll get 3. If I put positive 5, since 5 is already positive, nothing changes. I just get 5. Okay, then if I put in 0, I get 0, because 0 is not negative or positive, so there's only one version of 0. Okay, but is there an easier way to write this function? Because every time I want to write this function, I can't be writing 4 words, right? Positive value of x. This is very long. So there is a way to write this, which is you put these 2 bars around x, which is the input, and you call this so these bars is the modulus sign. They form the modulus sign. Okay, and what the modulus sign is saying is take only the positive value of x. Okay, so if x is negative 1, if you apply a modulus to it, okay, x is negative 1, if you apply a modulus to it, this will become positive 1. Okay, so say fx is the absolute value function, and x equals to negative 3.2. So f of negative 3.2 is modulus negative 3.2, which will be positive 3.2. If x is positive 2, then f of 2 is the modulus of 2, which is just 2. Why? Because 2 is positive. Okay, a positive number doesn't need to change. Only negative numbers need to change to become positive numbers. Okay, now let's do a reverse example. So initially we looked at this function fx equals to 2x, right? So let's take that function now. Fx equals to 2x. Initially I gave something like what number did I give? I gave 1 and negative 3. So let's just take 1. I gave the number 1, and then I asked you what is the output. Now let me give you a different situation. I do not know what the input is, but I give you the output. The output is 8. This is f. So what is, so this question mark here is x, right? It's pretty much the input or the object. So what is the object for the image 8. So what we do is, we know that the output is 2x. Okay, for some x, for any x, the output is 2x, and this is equal to 8. So x is 8 over 2, which is 4. So then we have our answer. This input is 4. All right, nice. So now we will talk about relations. Okay, so the idea of a function, the important thing about a function is that you have one input, you put it into a function, and you must get one output. Okay, so let's take a function fx equals to 2x and compare it with fx equals to modulus of x, the absolute value function. Oops, I think I forgot to tell you that. So this function here, okay, where you only take the positive value, this is what we call the absolute value function. Okay, this is the name for the function. So we compare f equals to 2x and f equals to modulus of x. We take two inputs, -1 and 1. So what is -1 mapped to? -1 will go to -2. 1 will go to 2 under the first function, right? So for different inputs, we always will have different outputs. So this is a 1-to-1 relation, meaning one input only goes to one output, and that's it. If you change the input, the output will be different. Okay, here it's not the same. So take the same numbers, -1 and 1, as your input. What is the output for this? This should be +1, right? But the output for if you put +1 as the input, you also get +1 as the output. So you have different inputs but the same output. Okay, so this is a many to one relation. Okay, you have many inputs going to one output. So this is also a function, because let's look at each input separately. So what we said is that we need to have one input and then you get one output. So let's look at the first relationship, which is putting -1. We have one input here and we get one output. So for each input, we only get one image. Then we can look at the second relationship, which is this relationship. You put the input +1 and you get the output +1. Okay, the idea is that probably the one input here is confusing. Okay, the idea is that you must get only one output. Okay, you put in an input, you must get only one output. If you put in a number, you should only get one number at the end. You cannot get two numbers at the end. So let's say I have a relation that looks like this: -1 and 1. Okay, and then I have three numbers here, 3, 4, 5. Okay, -1 goes to 4 and 3. 1 goes to 5. So this is not a problem. Okay, this is because there's one input that is going to one output. That's fine. But this relationship here, this is where the problem is, because this is showing that if you put in 1 into the function, okay, you are getting two outputs, you're getting 3 and 4. So this is not a function, okay, this is not a function, this cannot be a function, because a function must give only one output. Okay, here it's giving 2. So this is a many to one relation, one to many relation, and this is definitely not a function. Okay, similarly, a many to many relation, okay, this is just a combination of a one to one and a many to a one to many and a many to one. So maybe you have 1 2 3 1 2 3, maybe this input goes here and here, so this is the many to one part. Okay, one to many part, and this is the problem, right? We saw this is the similar thing, right? And then you also have a one to many relation. So what's a one to many? Maybe something like this. Okay, so this is a one to many part. This is not a problem, but this is a problem. Okay, having two outputs is a problem. So you cannot have multiple outputs for a single input. So function can only be the first two that we said. Okay, it can only be one to one or many to one. One to one or many to one. Okay, single input cannot have multiple outputs. All right, so I think that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video about domains, codomains, and the range. Stay safe and goodbye.